Lunacy makes the cut in the primary, which Jarla has gone with no. But I do think the bigger talking point is AyyRoK's build with the Warlock, because his primary is kind of halfway already, right?
Right.
We'll get to this in a second. His primaries come already halfway, and then his secondary kind of switches back to like what would be standard ladder Warlock, but he's actually treating that as like his anti-priest build, right? He'll switch into that and just 2-0 the priest from that point if he can get there. Whereas his primary has some chance of beating mage because focus, ignore what Raven's doing, because he's putting in the big threats and all that stuff early in the game, and he's losing out on cascading disasters. He's just playing Kazakus instead, so he can just curve out into like Divine Shield, summon a copy on 5 and try and stick some board presence. But he's not going all the way in, saving the really spicy stuff like Robes of Protection and Ultra Fire for the tertiary deck. But yes, Raven, I spoke for like 2 minutes straight then, and none of the words I said are going to matter at all because Jarla has drawn double Incanter's Flow.
Yeah, so we're going to see some fireworks right now, because it's not only double Incanter's Flow, but double Incanter's Flow plus card draw on coin, right? So coin flow, intellect, and then watch the game happen. And you see AyyRoK already, just a quick like, it's one of those games. Because normally, I think you'll agree with me, something we talk about a lot is when a coin Incanter's Flow happens, it's because there's also a turn 2 play, right? It's not often that you would coin it out and then have absolutely nothing to do turn 2, and AyyRoK with the clap just going, okay, right, yeah, I've got a soul share.
It usually means a couple of things, right? Like, it's possible that you just didn't have something to spend 1 mana on, right? Like, you didn't have Font of Power, you didn't have Primordial Studies. So at that point, you're going to float a mana anyway, whether it's this turn or next turn. So you might as well just coin flow in that position. But yeah, when you just have coin flow into flow, it makes it fairly straightforward. Derek and I did test this matchup quite extensively, and I will say it was largely torture from my side playing AyyRoK's decks. Like, I just could not find a way to get there consistently. But it's worth noting that there was a game where, you know, Derek, trying to be kind to my level of frustration at this point, said, I've drawn double Incanter's Flow in my opening hand. Do you want to just go next? And I was like, nah, let's play it out. And that was one of the few games I actually won from AyyRoK's side of proceedings. So AyyRoK will be hoping that that is a good omen for him here. But honestly, Derek did kind of proceed to draw dead from that point, and I did manage to burn the vast majority of the deck because I was already on the tertiary and had the Altars of Fire in there as well. So Derek did not actually get to play with many of his cards that game. AyyRoK here is still on his primary, so does not have the ability to do that very quickly. So probably going to spell disaster for him quite quickly this game.
And already Jarla's hand probably adds up to a total of 2 mana, and he does have a Fireball and Ruined Orb already heavily reduced. And that
1 spell damage, please, dealer. Unlucky.
Let's just get the minion out of the way. I was going to say, Jarla, although does have an incredible hand and incredible opening, he can't just let AyyRoK play a ton of minions and hit him in the face, right?
It's so great. Like, I'm sat here, like, trying to do Castercraft of, like, okay, so what can we tell the audience is a potential out for AyyRoK to get out of this game? I'm like, well, there's a lot of Soul Fragments in his deck. He's got 2 Soul Shears, and he already has Sociologist in his hand. That's a chance, right? There's only really 1 card in Jarla's deck that's able to answer that situation. Well, there it is, and it costs 5.
Yeah, he might just be dead before he can even play Militia at this point.
Also true.
I mean, Jarla really is just 1 spell damage minion away from a good time with double Cram Session. Arguably as well, I think sometimes players get a little bit too greedy with Cram Session. I know it can be very powerful with spell damage, but for 0 mana cycle with double Incanter's Flow reduction, it's just good. I don't think it's worth waiting too long for that to pay off. So we'll see what Jarla does here.
Kind of have the opposite opinion. I'd say the more Incanter's Flows you have played, the more you can afford to be greedy with the Cram Session, because the second that Cram Session draws 2 or 3 cards, like, the game just ends, right? Whereas just cycling it for 1 doesn't necessarily dig you deeper. But I think, like, because each card that you draw is so much more incremental tempo, I almost want to be more greedy with Cram Sessions when I have the particularly double Incanter's Flow discount. But I mean, you just draw AI, that's fine.
I know, yeah, or just ignore our points and just draw Arcane Intellect, and you'll be fine.
Yeah.
I wonder.
It's so funny that there's, if Jarla chooses, that we can see, there's likely to be a not very well contested Jandis next turn. And that's just not even the most powerful thing about Jarla's deck right now, right? It's almost unimportant.
I love this. I was about to make this exact point, and this is something that did become apparent from my testing against AyyRoK, is that AyyRoK has chosen to forego Cascading Disasters, right? Which does seem to make sense. It's not like Mage floods the board with a bunch of minions, and I think having Kazakus in your deck is generally to your benefit against Mage, right? Because you can just do something cheesy and scammy and broken and unexpected and just try and steal a win against Mage. However, if your opponent is aware of that fact, they can abuse that by just playing minions, which suddenly become very, very difficult for you to deal with because you've taken out the best minion clearing card in your deck. So suddenly your Apexis Blast minions, any mid-range minions that you get out of Font of Power, Jandis in particular coming out here, so much more difficult for AyyRoK to be able to deal with than if he was playing Cascading Disaster in his deck.
Yeah, this is a little bit awkward because Jarla went for the 3-5 last turn. He, for example, could have done AI Combustion to clear off the board instead. This Jandis feels, you know, a lot less powerful here, so I do wonder if he ever skips it or says, you know what, if he trades the minions in and I still have a minion left over afterwards, that's fine for the Jandis and I can just carry on with my day.
I do kind of like foregoing it here, honestly. I do think his plan, like as I was describing, he was just going to play the minion curve. He is going to continue to do that, but like he was hoping his 3-5 would do better than it did, right? Being met with the Siphon Soul, which was about the only clean answer. Everything else was like Drain Soul, Soul Shear that would have required a minion trade as well on top of that, or 2 minion trades on top of that. But I think, you know, all things considered, he's just going to play out the minion curve because he wants to just get rid of these minions.
Right. So there goes Militia. There is, of course, Flame Strike in hand for Jarla, so this board is already deleted if Jarla decides it's so.
If he decides it's so, he's just going to leave it up. Nah, forget about it. Just leave like 20 power in play. It seems fine.
With double Incanters, he could just leave them next turn, so.
That is true. You're not wrong.
He has Arcane Intellect, double Cramp Session, and a 2-mana Fireball Soul. He's got all he needs.
And 1 Spring Water left in deck, crucially, as well, to make it all happen. Oh.
It is the one query I would have about Jarla's list is it's the 1 Ring Toss and 1 Netherwind portal, whereas I personally think Ring Toss is so powerful, it like hurts me to not play 2 in any given list. it's just an interesting choice, right? To just have the raw secret of Netherwind in the deck instead.
Tough choice. Fair Game does burn a card, but it does also always activate this turn. So, you know, 3 cards is 3 cards, even if you do end up burning 1. It seems kind of insane when you have double discount.
Is it worth School Spirits here? Because I think AyyRoK will want the Demon, right? Just a test for Counterspell, I mean.
Right.
It's the news.
Job's done.
I guess, yeah.
I mean, it's a plan, right? It's something.
It is. Plays Jiraxxus next to... Oh my goodness, how much damage is that? 15, 21, 27 if he can play it all. So if he gets Spring Water, he has 27 this turn. Okay, he has 27 minimum this turn. If he has the opportunity to get into spell damage as well, like Primordial Studies will cost 0. He can potentially play Lab Partner as well, which would cost 0. I think if he gets all that, it's lethal.
If he Apexis Blasts Mozaki.
Sure. That probably gets there as well, yeah.
Just because he can cram, right, for 0 to buff spell damage.
Yep.
Oh, pick your poison, Jarla. Pick your poison.
I'm not sure this ever actually gets there in terms of straight up lethal
I think it's
turn now, but it's probably the most efficient way of playing the turn overall. I always just want to live the dream when I have my deck that cheap with Spring Water.
It's because with Mage, dreams do come true, so it's not even an unrealistic attempt, but I think this is Jarla being Jarla, especially just saying, what's the most efficient way to do this? I'll bank my 10, guaranteed from Mask. We'll draw, we'll see what happens. More minions, get the Apexis Blast down. Next turn he has two mana fireballs and the Rune Orb minimum for 14 at an absolute minimum.
Also, based on our little debate earlier about whether or not it's better to be greedy with Cram Session when you have your deck this cheap, it seems Jarla is very much on my side of that argument, considering they're both still in the hand for 0 mana.
All I see, Sol, is this lethal could have happened at least 1 turn ago if it just used them.
Yeah. But like I said, like I'm fully behind it when you consider that just like there are still 2 of this card in Jarla's deck, right? There's just 2 Primordial Studies still remaining. So the second that comes off the top and he finds a Phoenix, right? The game actually just ends on the spot at that point. Well, not on the spot, poor choice of words. It ends in 2 turns after that point.
I think for me it was more, well, Jarla's had great turns, right? So there's no even need for him to have Cram Session. It was more if he had like a lot of AoE and AyyRoK had no minions, does he just ping pass? You know, right? It's like you're going to play them then, of course, but AyyRoK's trying to dig himself out of this. I think called it Oasis Surger then for some reason. The Water Elemental is now on the board. But that is not going to matter as there's about 1 trillion damage here from Jarla.
Yeah, as long as Jarla does not Alutemu this turn, as it is now known, this should be fairly straightforward for Jarla.
Yeah, and what a game. And that is pretty much Mage at its peak power if you don't want to go down the route of the best deck of Lunacy ever. This is just Mage, reduces the deck, draws the cards, not only has decent removal, but just has all the burn in the world. And as we saw, there's no realistic way that AyyRoK could have even fought back from that. Like, maybe if he played a Void Drink, but you look at his hand, I think there was still Devolving Missiles in there. So it's like, I don't even know if AyyRoK could pick his cards in order, what would have beat that from Jarla. And again, we go back to the point of, well, why are people bringing Mage? Kind of because of games like that.
That's why. You just saw it. You just saw it in that game. You just saw it in the 2 games previous. Mage has just done Mage things for the entire EU broadcast so far. And you're right. I think you've made the point perfectly. Just watching that game, I'm starting to wonder whether I imagined the game where I beat Double Flow against AyyRoK yesterday.
Sol was so angry about losing literally all day that he just decided to invent a game.
Yeah, I just manifested a victory. But I'm pretty sure it happens, and I'm pretty sure that just the only logical conclusion from this point is that I'm the greatest Hearthstone player that's ever lived.
Or that Derek is not Jarla. Is that fair?
I mean, bold statement there. I don't know if we can go that far. You want to tone it back a little bit, I think.
Pretty important distinction to me. But yeah, that is going to be game 1, of course, to Jarla on the Mage. And now we get to see if and who are going to change their decks across to Specialist, right? And whether it's going to be secondary or tertiary. I'm going to have a quick glance myself to see if it's been locked in yet. Yep, looks like AyyRoK is going to be going to that tertiary list for this matchup here. So the Ogremancers get involved.
For AyyRoK, sorry? AyyRoK already has Ogremancers in his list.
I'm looking at the wrong one. Yeah.
It's the Robes of Protection that come in and the Altar of Fire. And so Robes of Protection is a really cute tech, and I do like it. Again, like I wonder whether the lack of Cascading Disaster does end up hurting him, but Robes is a cute tech because it kind of makes any board of your choosing require 1 Devolving Missiles to deal with because they don't really have other ways of doing it. The problem I found going up against AyyRoK is that, you know, I'd make a board, I'd curve out early, I'd play Robes of Protection, but then AyyRoK would just, like, play a Apexis Blast on my face, right? Or
and then you're like,
just, like, Font of Power, play some minions. And then, like I said, because I don't have Cascading Disaster in my deck, I then just have to trade my minions into his minions, which is a scenario that he's perfectly fine with in that scenario. So, not sure whether it does enough, but just getting a Devolving Missiles out of the hand was useful in a couple of spots, because it then meant Void Drinker or 5-mana Golem or whatever it was could come down and there was a little less threat of there being a Devolving Missiles in hand because you've already forced one out.
All I'm doing staring at this hand from AyyRoK is imagine, you know, like the sunglasses memes where someone takes them off and it's just another pair underneath. I imagine that's what's going to happen if like both robes are on board, one dies, it just takes the robe off, there's another one. You know, AyyRoK has got off to a, you know, I guess with this deck, a good start, right? He has the kind of curve with coin 3 into 3, has options of where he goes, has Kazakas to back it up with maybe a buff golem if the board sticks. So it's looking okay, but Jarla already could just combustion this man quick and just say, no, you've got a 1-3 and that's it this turn.
Yeah, and I think I like it. It spends mana very efficiently this turn. You can then continue to do that next turn with a Pexis Blast or Spring Water into on the following turn. But yeah, I think just making sure the board doesn't snowball, especially since Jarla will assume, of course, crucial point of Specialist, which I don't think we hammer home enough, is that you draw your wife on 3 off the top and it goes face. But also, you don't have to declare your deck to your opponent. So Jarla doesn't know currently that AyyRoK is on Tertiary, but he'll have a pretty good idea. And now, when the robes comes down, he will be absolutely certain.
Yep, so he knows now there is going to be 2 Robes of Protection and 2 Altar of Fire in the list, and there isn't going to be 2 Twisted Nether, 1 Siphon, and 1 School Spirit. So that knowledge now is open.
Well, no Devolving Missiles, so this is the scenario I talked about. There is a key difference here, though, between the scenario I was describing and the scenario that we're watching here from AyyRoK, and that is there is a freaking 3-10 on the board, right? You can picture exactly what I was talking about, right? Like, this seems powerful, but remove the 3-10 from play, which is obviously an incredibly lucky outcome for AyyRoK. And you see Jarla's play here is just fine. You just shoot him in the face as a 4-5 on board, and now the only way AyyRoK would have to remove that would cost him his Robes of Protection. He'd have to trade plus Draid Soul into it.
Right.
So that 3-10 is just making all the world of difference right now.
And I imagine here, I mean, we'll find out very quickly that AyyRoK did pick a 1 cost, because I think he might want to 1 cost Robes next turn.
Interesting.
Because I think it's fair to assume, right? Well, as you said, he either trades into this 4-5. Oh no, he picked 5.
Yeah, I will say in my experience, this is important, right? Just to go for stealth or summon a copy or combinations of both of those things and just have another big threat to play, because it's how you win the matchup as Warlock in my limited experience, is just playing a big threat each turn. So I like it.
Yeah, I guess I just assume because the trade can go into the Robes now from Willow, then the Robes +1, if it got the buff the board, would be an insane answer to that turn, right?
Right.
Did get deal 3 to 2.
Oh, he didn't pick summon a copy.
I think Lifesteal deal 3 twice, right?
Yeah, that's exactly what he's got. Okay, so he's using this board as his aggression, and then he is using the Golem as a defensive tool instead to pick up some healing, which is a cool way of going about it, I guess.
Yeah, he has multiple routes for turn 5, right? He could go Golem if he feels he needs it. He can go Void Drinker. He could go Robes Drain Soul if that's enough to make a difference and keep the immunity or untargetability, that word, to keep that up. So our options here for AyyRoK, but Jarla needs to now work out what he wants to do. But again, the trade into the Robes, another Apexis Blast is something to think about maybe on the Kazakas, but also you've got to look. Apexis Blast, 3-mana Fireball, 4-mana Fireball. Some of this could go face. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. Decision point here as well as to whether to hold on to the Cram Session. I think naturally would say yes, since you have the Aegwynn sat in hand ready to go. And Jarla agrees yet again. But it bears repeating just how huge Wife on 3 was here for AyyRoK, right? Like, this 3-10 is just running the game right now.
I mean, yeah, his board would be 1-3, right? Like, there's no alternative because the 3-10 couldn't have been played instead of a different card, right? It's an extra bonus, so
And Jarla would be on 25, which is a massive difference here as well, because, you know, AyyRoK is racing here. Like, make no bones about it. Even though he picked a defensive golem, he's picked lifesteal as a way to race, right? So that he can be as aggressive as he possibly can.
What if he trades the 3/10 into 4/3 and then plays golem with the trade?
Love it.
No, that's good. I think you want to keep this this board control, because with this Warlock deck, if you don't keep board control, you may as well play a different deck, right? Because he's put so many of these minions into it.
Yep, I love this. You have a fairly clear signal, I would say, that your opponent does not currently have devolving missiles in their hand. So this seems as good an opportunity as ever to get down the Void Drinker. Jarla now has infinity draws for that devolving missiles. This could be the turning point. He might still just have to start with Springwater. I don't see a card you can spend. Yeah, you can't spend a card, then Springwater, and then still Aegwin Cram Session if you need to, right? So,
I mean, I would have started with the 6/7 targeting the 7/8. It misses and hits the 3/6. Clearly the correct play.
There's very clearly one thing on Jarla's mind this turn. Like, that's it. That's all he needs to find. That's all this turn is about, is just dig, find devolving missiles. There are 2 copies of it remaining.
Gonna go for Rundle.
Yes. Okay.
Well, this with the Brain Freeze will clear up the 7/4, so we can
That's fair.
try and make this good trade. Obviously, the Ogre doesn't always play nice.
Okay. I like that.
This is where you need. This is just an emotional pick here. Okay. It's like 50% the chance to hit the right target, so he lost the target there.
Yes. Well, I mean, yeah, that's just a philosophical choice, right?
Yeah.
The card text says 50% chance to attack the correct enemy. So you have to make a decision, right? You have to plant your flag as to what the correct target is. And Jarla says the correct target is face.
And I think I'm going to be wrong, so it's going to miss face and hit the 3/6.
Oh, I like that. I think I got way too tunneled there on the devolving missiles for a second. Jarla spotting away where he didn't have to take a risk. It wasn't a huge risk. Like, he's drawing so many extra cards with the opportunity to keep on chaining through. He does still have both copies of devolving missiles in his deck, but yeah, I think he would have been in a very, very bad position had he gone for that play and missed.
Let's get the clear here with Hysteria, but this follow-up doesn't feel great, does it? Just a 3/4 on the board here for AyyRoK. Jarla, of course, still has a ton of cards, has loads of card draw.
That's a better looking follow-up, though.
What to do?
One of those tough calls here at this point in the game for Jarla is he has loads of burn, but it's, I'm going to say the words expensive, right? Expensive relative to what Mage can do and what mana cost he's on right now. So he needs to work out whether he wants to start just filtering, getting these burn damage in, or whether he wants to just hold on, and do other things with his turn. So he is going to start with card draw. He could just Apexis Blast the 3/4 and just say, okay, well, again, no cascading, as you mentioned before, so he has a minion you don't.
Has picked up Incanters, though, which might just be tempting to throw down here. He can just, like, Incanters, look in the font, try and potentially play, like, 3-drop, 1-drop, if he can find a 1-drop out of the font. Does end up just going Apexis. Okay. So currently only 3 fragments in the deck for AyyRoK, which is annoyingly inefficient into even the small minion that came out of the Apexis Blast on the other side. That's way below average, but still.
Also as well,
very powerful swing from the Sociologist.
Also, because of 7 mana and the way the shape of AyyRoK's hand, he can't Golem plus additional minion, right? Which feels pretty bad.
Yeah.
He can't double 3-drop Drain Soul or Life Tap or anything. Like, this is just a very awkwardly shaped hand here from AyyRoK this turn.
It is. But it's like the only play that even feels remotely powerful is Sociologist, but as I was talking about before, that is a win condition. They only really have one card in their deck, and the Flame Strike, that answers that. If you get up to 5, 6, 7 Soul Fragments, right? And
he has Lucky Soul, right? So he could shuffle more in from hand, right? He has the way right now to shuffle more in if he wants.
Yep. Just going to give up his Golem, which is a huge resource in terms of answering the board. You can see he's not particularly happy about it.
There's a threat that Jarla has to kill, though, right? You can't just have a 5/5 not only hitting him for a third of his life at this point, but also just restoring the health on AyyRoK with that lifesteal.
And burn in deck limited. In terms of direct guaranteed burn, there is not much left. You see he has the fireballs in his hand. He's been using the Apexis Blast up. He does have those masks, which of course are an enormous amount of damage, but you have to be able to deny the board to be able to get that damage to go face. And with AyyRoK all the way back up at 30, Jarla is going to have to piece something together quite special here.
I wonder.
It really is tricky. It looks like, ooh, Deck of Lunacy, okay.
I think that's following on from exactly what I was just saying, right?
Yeah. Needs something more.
Yeah, getting those masks to guarantee go face is going to be a problem, and with only 2 fireballs left remaining, that can be a big issue. So he's deciding to just go back to the well with the Deck of Lunacy and play the Incanter's Flow afterwards here, having saved it from the previous turn, which may have been a consideration on the previous turn as well, right? When I was saying maybe it's better to just get the Incanter's Flow down this turn and do something else, Jarla was perhaps still considering that Deck of Lunacy out, which me now having looked at the remainder of the deck, I think it's actually quite smart.
Again, a bit painful that there's Lucky Soul Hoarder in hand, but I think this has to be the Militia turn, right? It kills the 1/3, the minion still lives. It's something. Otherwise, I feel like AyyRoK's going to like roll the dice with the turn, even if he goes double 3-drop with a live tap or a Demonic Studies. I just don't think whatever he gets is going to be as powerful as Militia.
Does make Militia so much more powerful on the next turn, though.
What if he could just kill him now?
I mean, you can't. It's just not that big now, is it? It's a very like ignorable threat, even.
This is not what we stood for.
Okay. Picking up the Talon as well. I will say the dynamic has changed now, right? Like, getting a 5, 6, 7 fragment Sociologist. I don't know why I keep saying 7 as if that's relevant. Obviously, 6 is the max that you can get. Getting like a 6 fragment Sociologist is a big win condition against Incanter's Flow Mage. But obviously, when they play Lunacy, the dynamic changes enormously, and they can have all manner of things at that point that answer that board, and not just the one Flame Strike that I was talking about.
Does have double Apexis Smuggler and a secret, which is pretty sick. That's some value right there.
True. You're not wrong.
I wonder now if AyyRoK's going to start considering this Altar of Fire now that Deck of Lunacy has been played.
Time runs out on me.
Yeah, I think he'll want to get the Sociologist down first, right? So he doesn't just start his own soul fragments. But yeah, I think that is on the horizon fairly soon.
Because surely AyyRoK can't be expecting to lose to just burn damage now, right? He's seen Lunacy and he's seen enough Apexis Blasts and such that he's on 30, right? He's safe. So I really like this Altar of Fire if it comes down.
Yeah, this is kind of the ideal timing for the Altar of Fire, where you get a bunch of soul fragments in your deck, you play the Sociologist to take advantage of the soul fragments, then you start burning cards because you can then burn your own soul fragments that you don't need anymore, right, as opposed to real cards. So good sequence to do those things in. But I think now we might just see the weak point of the build of AyyRoK's deck, which is if Jarla can hit enough minion-generating spells off the Lunacy, AyyRoK might just run out of ways to deal with it without those cascading disasters, as we keep talking about.
Could go here, Spirit Jailer and Altar of Fire with Sociologist this turn, which would be pretty sick.
Yes, very true. So with that soul fragment drawn, the Sociologist is currently down to 4, which means the Spirit Jailer will pump it back up to 6. but there isn't the board space to take full advantage of that just now anyway.
Yeah, all he needs arguably is 5 this turn, right? Because the Tailwind won't die.
Yeah, and weirdly enough, by playing the Spirit Jailer, he then can only get a maximum of 4 anyway, which makes it kind of pointless.
I was more mean for the Ultra Fire turn, right? He
Yes.
can do this, then play, yeah.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
He's going to Ultra first.
Librum, Ignition, and one.
Lost Draxus.
Okay.
Yeah, AyyRoK lost Draxus. Which again could be a little bit rough for him because one of the ways he can fight back on a minion base is with that hero power, right?
That Chaos Nova off the top is pretty disgusting.
I wonder.
So in terms of knowledge of Jarla's remaining deck, he now has 1 Librum of Hope remaining exactly, I think. We know that for a fact. And he did not burn any minion-generating spells off the Altar of Fire, which is a pretty big deal, because obviously that's what he's going to need to be able to win the game from this point.
Yeah, you know what's also kind of funny? With the Militia Blade and the Draxus burn, he actually can't corrupt Ticketus unless he... Oh, Demonic Studies, right? He can get a big demon.
Yeah. Can't say, do you know what's funny, and then not let me guess. I knew the answer, Raven. Come on, let me play.
Rhetorical questions.
Okay.
Kind of a weird Jandis.
It is a weird Jandis, yeah. Feels strange to put the illusion on the Frenzy minion, but just looking at ways that could be interacted with the Twilight Runner, there are very few, I believe. I guess Hysteria can do it. There is still the 1 School Spirits, of course, but then on top of that, I guess Hysteria can also get the job done.
Also, weirdly enough, this makes it so that AyyRoK won't want to even play the Ticketus out as a tempo play, right? Because there's already enough damage on board to deal with this.
True. It's kind of minion generation, but not what he needs at this point.
Yeah, but a double Apexis, it's not too bad, is it?
My business.
That's fair, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this is just this is 4 spell discovers here for Jarla.
It's just a Sethic turn. Oh, get baited all day by that potion every single day of the week. Oh my goodness, that was filth.
Oh my. Now he can potion, play the other smuggler for 1, and then play the secret.
Sure you don't just want to play another Jandis?
No, I want more spells!
I'm pretty sure you can just play the other Jandis.
He's just dead. It's close.
It's close!
It is!
Time runs out on me.
Now, what if he just gets 3 fireballs all?
He could do that next turn. What do you mean? Oh, it's just Twilight Runner, apparently. Apparently we're both
dead
wrong.
by then.
Twilight Runner. Okay.
Why is it Twilight? Is it because he's expected to die? Because if he attacks, he's going to fatigue himself and just die. Okay, so he needs to... So AyyRoK needs to Demonic Studies into the Dreadlord, right? This turn?
Sure. Yeah, no, that's
a
very good out.
Right?
Yeah, it's a very good out, yeah. Wait, are you talking about the Taunt Lifesteal thing?
Yes.
So there's also the AoE for 1, right? Which is pretty... Dread
Infernal. Yep.
Yeah, which is very effective here. Obviously, one of the biggest minions being an illusion.
Let's start with Drained Soul, because again, he's valuing the Demonic Studies for a counterspell.
Yep. Wow, it actually is on the Frenzy minion. Okay. Obviously, that was just a 50-50, but, you know, we were just kind of debating and memeing about what the strongest of like 20 different strong plays was. But obviously, if the Frenzy was real, making a huge board there and then trading the Frenzy into something would have been enormous. But he's made the Frenzy the illusion, which is pretty insane. Like, super heavy valuing the Twilight Runner card draw from the previous turn, right? Because as I mentioned, there was only 2 extremely specific ways that the game could have been ended. Sorry, that the Twilight Runner could have been killed. While it was in stealth, and he chose to play around that by making the Frenzy minion the illusion.
Yeah, I do like this play here from AyyRoK, just to fill up the board with minimum attack minions, so all these 1/1s he knows he has can't be played, but he's not going to be enough fireballs there, and that's going to be a 2-0 for Jarla. He's going to take down AyyRoK, Warlock falls, and Mage continues to reign supreme, Sottle, as Jarla 2-0 once again. Mage doing pretty well this week, pretty well.
Yeah, yep. 4 games, 4 flow, or 4 games, 3 flows, 1 lunacy, 4 wins. Something like that is the record for Mage so far. But yeah, I think pretty chaotic ending to the game. Like, I'm not sure if maybe like Jarla was playing around a Twisting Nether that isn't in the deck anymore, maybe, because I think that's one of the cards that's been cut out in the tertiary deck. Like I don't know what the motivation was to just not make the enormous game-ending board with the other Jandis, but either way, what he did was more than enough to get over the line. I think the real point to focus on is, first off, AyyRoK's face, but secondly, his decision to play the deck of Lunacy when he did, right? Which I think a lot of people would have avoided, just like counting the damage in their deck. Like, well, I still have 20 from the 2 masks. I still have 2 fireballs in my hand, right? I can still get there. But I think Jarla recognized that because he had so little guaranteed damage left, having used the Apexis Blast and AyyRoK going all the way back up to 30, that he needed to do something very, very scammy with the late deck of Lunacy, which is something that you don't often see.
And you can see, obviously, there was all of these shenanigans that happened, but you could see it just a little bit ago in that replay of that Chaos Nova. If that just was a card draw card or something, you know, like not an AoE clear, then Jarla's in like serious trouble.